at some future time.
Okay, Chief. Is there any input from those of you who are attending on this particular hearing? So, there being no further comment, Chief, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I'll invite any further comments from, or observations from the board.
Complete, it's good.
Right, I support it. Reasonable.
Okay, well, we're, in accordance with VSA 24, Section 127-107, we're, after the public hearing, we may finally adopt the ordinance with or without amendment. So, if the ordinance is amended prior to passage, the board will cause the amended ordinance to be entered in the official record of the proceedings, and shall also cause the amended section of the ordinance as finally passed to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the town on a day not more than 14 days after adoption. But I'm not hearing any potential amendments. So, pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to adopt the amendments to the ordinance for regulation of speed, the ordinance for regulation of traffic lights and traffic signs, the ordinance for regulation of parking, and the ordinance for daily closing of the parks, as presented by Chief Hanley.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other comments?
I just, while you're here, I received a comment regarding Happy Trail Park. This is not about the ordinance, but I didn't know if you were already aware that there are encampments again down there. And so I'm just relaying that since I happened to see you and it just came to me today. So,
Yeah, some of that is a result of being moved off of the Green Mountain Power property at their request. So it's just, we're playing whack-a-mole with campsites
Right.
essentially. So they'll move somewhere else and then we'll move them out. But thank you for that. I'll let the evening
Okay.
officers know.
in terms of cleaning up after an encampment, who manages that?
We let DPW know, we'll go down there with them. And if we have to remove debris, we remove the debris.
Yeah. They've created some ditching and other, like, land damage down there too.
Yeah,
A bit.
that's what we're finding on some of the private areas where they've been asked to remove. So it's just something we follow one to the next to the next.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we call a diversionary tactic. I think I have a motion and a second, and hearing no comment, I think we're ready to go to vote. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Anything else for Chief while we have him here? All right.
Are you involved with the, you're monitoring the Middle Road and Court Street traffic light?
Yeah, if there's a problem with the light, we let DPW know. I think that's a state light. Is that a state light,
It
Kathleen?
is.
Just to note, I did talk with Dan again at Infrastructure Committee last Thursday about reaching out to V-Trans.
Yeah.
And gave him, and maybe he can update us when he's on the agenda, gave him some of my observations to take to V-Trans, so we've been communicating regarding, so.
So I was on that, my store's right there, so
Yeah.
I was coming out on Middle Road at 2:14, not this past Thursday, but Thursday before. And I waited until 2:18, the light won't turn green. And I finally backed up all the way into my driveway and came out on Court Street. And it was still, has not changed, so I don't know if there's
very
something wrong.
I don't know, if there's a signaling
minutes
issue
is a
there or
long
something.
time.
Yeah, I don't know. Dan's aware of it?
Yeah,
So,
we talked, we'll ask him to update us when he's on.
yeah, sometimes it's just an adjustment of the timing or the sensitivity of,
Yep,
Thanks, Chief.
okay.
thank you.
So Alan's here to talk to us about the Vermont Land Trust, and Hank's with him. Request for grant for purchase of development rights from Hank DeMuzio and Rhonda Roberts for Legend Farm. If you please, I've just got a few little handouts here.
Thank you.
Right, thanks for having us. I'm Alan Carnatz with the Vermont Land Trust, and working with Hank, the landowner, in trying to conserve this property. I think you have all the handouts that was sent out. I assume you reviewed that. So I think we're here, obviously, to ask for your support out of the Conservation Fund, but mostly just to answer any questions that you may have. I know you have a full agenda. But I think this is an exciting project for us, and we also have, there was a support letter, I think, Kathleen, it was sent around from Malt, from Jamie Montague, supporting this project. And just real briefly, you know, we've been very fortunate, and I think the Middlebury is extremely supportive of our conservation efforts around town, and it's really one of the, it's always exciting when I work with a town that has a conservation fund that can leverage some of this, because that's really what this provides. And we are working with Hank on a second phase of this project. So I'm not sure, we don't even have the final appraisal on that, maybe a year or two out. Maybe a year. I know when you hear 2 years, you'd rather hear a year, but it's probably at least a year out. So we may be seeking some other funds once we get down that road. But for now, we're pretty excited. Not only are you conserving your main piece, but also you're buying a piece from Peggy Ward, around 19 acres. I think you're involved with the town now on that boundary line adjustment and some other things with the zoning. So that's also going to be included in this. And again, I think you have the maps, or actually some of this is probably up on the screen now. So again, I think we're here to ask for your support and answer any questions.
Questions of the board?
No, I just wanted to comment that I did note that the Planning Commission supports it too. That's an important consideration in terms of looking at land use future, you know,
Yep.
so that was important to me. So and the malt recommendation, so I would support it.
It's a
Excellent.
wonderful,
Two other
How are you,
farm-
Victor?
There are two other farms that are conserved, the Butterfield Farm and the Butler Farm are also conserved. There are also Munger Farms, and actually Brian lives on the tail end of Nathaniel Munger's farm from way back when. So, it's a nice history.
I'm sure Hank could fill the rest of the evening with
Yeah, I
the
could- I'm
history
not
of
gonna-
Munger
I'm not-
Street.
I just, that's why I gave you the handout,
But
so
I
you could have a little
don't
light
know
reading.
if I would give you the hook or other people, but anyway.
Okay, are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion if there's no
I'll
questions.
move that we approve the allocation of $44,000 from our town conservation fund to support the permanent conservation of 132 acres of land owned by Hank DeMuzio and Rhonda Roberts, also known as Ledge End Farm.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any final opportunity for questions?
Can I, so I support this. I don't really have any questions about this. I just wondered if, we could get an idea at some point from, I think something the Conservation Commission could maybe look at is having a plan, or the Planning Commission, of how much more we want to conserve. And, you know, I'm just curious what the future looks like how much are we,
I can speak to that a little bit,
Okay.
only because I've been in contact with Jen, you know, your planner. And we are planning to have another sort of a follow-up meeting with the Conservation Commission and looking at it. And she was going to be doing a GIS map that took the zoning into effect with your current zoning and looking at properties that are probably at most at risk, or the areas that could be looked at. So I think we're working
okay,
in that direction.
okay,
And
good.
and Jen
That's good.
seems to be very supportive of that.
So I was just sort of curious, like, how, you know, how much, you know, what direction
Right.
is it going and how much more? And
Yeah.
not that I'm one way or another, just more just asking
Inform.
for informing.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. So
Yeah,
thank
no, I
you.
think it's important, and obviously, when I get a project, I don't necessarily prospect for projects. I don't necessarily knock on doors looking for projects. There's more, I have on my plate more projects than there is funding. But when we have a project that fits in an agricultural area, obviously we check in with the town, we check the zoning first thing. And then if it's connected, you know, if there's several farms connected for us, that's a plus. So, and that's why this one fits in really well. But we'll
Yeah.
probably give you some more updates on that as we go forward.
Great, thank you.
And again, just to close out, the only other one that I'm working on is the phase 2 of Hank's project. I don't have anything else on my plate in Middlebury at this point.
And that was the east side of the road.
It'd be the east side, correct.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The deer and I thank you.
Yep.
So we're ready for you, Dan. Good evening. Dan. This is a relatively light evening based upon the last few you've had.
Yep.
Yeah, I got everybody out of infrastructure 1 minute past our agenda time the other day.
That's the best you could do.
Pretty cool.
You're slipping.
Okay, the first item is a recommendation for award for a contract for painting the windows at Ilsley Library. These are the bank,
Sorry, Dan.
what,
Irene is here, so we have to make a correction. We are painting the sashes
you're painting the sashes,
and not the windows, please.
right? So there's a bank of window sashes on the front of the library. There's 36 independent little windows grouped together. Dana had contacted a couple painting firms, asked them to submit proposals. They did. It was over $3,000, so we had to go out to bid, so we did that. Created a bid packet, organized a pre-bid meeting. No one showed, no bidders. So she went back to the low bidder, or the low proposal from before we did the bid project, and that was Stearns Painting, and they said they would still honor their proposal, original proposal for $3,200. So requesting the board to approve Stearns Painting for that amount, and so they can get it done before it gets too cool out for painting.
I move to award the contract for the Isley Library window sash painting project to Stearns Paint and Papering for $3,200.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Second item is recommendation on Creek Road access. We discussed at the Infrastructure Committee the conversations with the parents and the Bingham folks about using the retaining the north access versus the southern access and having everybody go around. The skinny from that is that it would be pretty inconvenient for those folks to go about 10 miles round trip to go out through the through the south. They're both supportive of using the guardrails at certain sections along the northern route. And so I guess that's how we'll continue to proceed with that, unless you have additional
So we should
comments.
probably
Yeah, we,
have a
we should have a
motion.
motion, but just as a little background, so we really, the main focus was whether we could extend the closed section of the road. And the board asked several of us to meet with those who had properties and domiciles on that road. So we met with the parents and the Binghams. What we found out is that the parents not only have a rental property that is going to be occupied by somebody who would be new to that road, but they also run a business out of their property. And those are things that weren't known by the board at the time of our discussion. And so coming out of that, I think we unanimously would, those of us in that committee in the group who were charged to meet with them, would recommend to support Bill's recommendation, and would therefore be looking for a motion to support that expenditure of funds.
So I'll make a motion to, I have to do this off the top of my head. I don't remember the name of the company,
Lafayette.
to approve Bill Kernan's recommendation to purchase used guardrail from the Lafayette Company and have them install it on Creek Road to enhance safety on that road. Is that good? I don't remember the dollar. It was around
4,000 roughly.
roughly 24,000.
So not,
Second.
okay. Not to exceed 24,000, or does it matter? We don't need the amount in?
I can get you the amount.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I don't remember if he had a final amount,
Yeah, they were.
That's sort of what I remember, too.
because there was
Should
a
be in our
question on
notes
how
from
much the
last time.
signs were.
Um,
Anyway,
It was,
how about we say for a not to exceed 25,000?
okay.
That's fine.
Is that
Yeah,
acceptable?
that works.
22,131 was the quote,
Right, but
and then there's signage on top.
oh, okay. I
Yeah.
need it, but I thought it was closer to 20. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's
Well, I think-
make the motion not to exceed 25,000, and I think we'll be covered,
Mhm.
if that's acceptable.
Is that okay, Kathleen? Do we have a second?
Yes.
Moving second? Okay, any discussion on that? Any other questions? I think, we did our due diligence, make sure we weren't spending money that could potentially be conserved, and I think it's money that needs to be spent. So, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Next item was the discussion about the Pump Mill Bridge and maybe how to prevent some damage by oversized vehicles. Irene gave another presentation about her concerns with the larger vehicles. Talked about, again, possibly having a structure built out in front of that. Basically, the committee was not supportive of building another structure there and spending the funds on that, and would rather have approached V-Trans, like we've already got that ball rolling with electronic message board signs on both sides of the bridge, on Weybridge side and Middlebury side, during that 10-week period. So kind of like flashing in your face that bridge has restrictions on it. So that's where the committee left it to pursue that approach.
So that's more than just a plain sign. I've seen those
Those
things
are
around.
the big electronic
Yeah, that-
message
Yeah,
board
yeah.
signs.
Yeah, we were talking, three,
Okay, I was under the impression it was, first earlier, it was just a sign,
Oh, no,
but no,
we've
that's,
talked to-
that makes sense.
The trailer
yeah,
mounted.
and I think Jim can attest to that, well, he's here, no, 3 of the electronic,
The
What do you-
flashing in your face.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
3 of
Yeah.
them,
Okay,
one
yeah, I
before you
get
get on
that
the
now.
road, and 2, one on each side of the bridge.
Each approach to it.
So that would just be for the time of the
Yes.
project.
Right.
So regardless whether you do these flashing signs or those hanging bars, whatever, these are gonna be temporary, right?
Right.
Or are they going to be there?
If there was hanging bars, that's something that I think Bill had chatted about that he would think about. I suggested maybe some iridescent fabric,
I'm talking about those
Things hanging
hanging
but-
with the bar, the hanging bars. What do you call those things?
So I've seen them in parking garages, so, but.
Right.
So Irene talked to us a little during citizen comments, and she had some additional information about a ton bridge that was damaged just the other day. Anyway,
So
so we
if-
talked to her, we talked a little bit with the
Before you
board,
came in.
about Bill's suggestion of the hanging pipe.
So after the construction period is over, and if we remove these electronic signs, you still have that danger of somebody damaging that bridge. And if we go with those chains with a pipe hanging, like the parking garage, you say, if we have those, we can keep it
Right.
longer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most critical time that we can't afford to lose that access is during the
That's-
closure.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can certainly talk more about that, I would assume, after the bridge closes over, or the railroad bridge closure is over. Maybe something else we can ask of Chief Hanley that I'm just thinking about is some extra patrols in the area, but he still can't have somebody there
Right.
24/7, so,
It always happens when you least expect it,
right.
so.
True.
And we're pretty sure, is there shoulder enough there to park those signs where,
Well, we talked about it Bordeaux Brothers,
Right.
because
There's
there's place to
adequate
turn
shoulder there.
around.
Right,
Right.
right.
at least on that side. I don't know where we talked about,
Putting
or
it
if
on the
we did on the,
Would it be right where you would make that turn?
Well, at Bordeaux's driveway is a pretty straight area, and then a little bit after that, it makes
No,
the curve.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking on the west side of the bridge.
Well, there's two approaches, so I'm not sure if it's gonna be, you have to do both. So-
You almost need two signs there.
Right, because right on top of it,
There's a small island in the middle of that road, right?
yeah,
So that
Yeah.
would be,
and you're limited by the visibility decreases as you get at a more of an acute angle to the sign, so you can't even read it. So it's the way the LEDs are aimed for intensity.
so
So
we
you
might
really
have some
need
more,
two.
we might have some more work to do to consider where that sign is on the west side, but, or signs on the
Right.
west side.
Right.
Okay.
But we're at least moving in that direction, so.
Okay. About the replacement of the generator radiators.
Right, so, Bob Wells did some shopping for a replacement of radiators for two of the generators he has. One is the large one at the wastewater plant, so that's original equipment at the new plant, which is now 20 years old. And the other one is a standby generator down in Southridge subdivision, which I think is now about 14 years old, maybe. So anyway, he's developed some issues with those, and he went out and did some shopping with a couple suppliers. And the short of it is Power's Guaranteed Generator was the low bidder of the two between them and Milton Cat for the generator at the pumps, or the generator radiator at the pump station. And that cost is $15,156. So we would need a motion for that one, and then I'll discuss the second one, if you want to do it that way.
So I'll make a motion to award a contract to Powers Guaranteed Generator for the replacement of the standby generator radiator at the main pump station for a total cost of $15,156.
second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
The second one is to award a contract to Milton Cat for the standby generator radiator at Southridge Pump Station. They were a little bit less expensive than Power's Guaranteed Generator, and their proposal was $7,614. So I'll need a motion for that purchase.
I'll make a motion to award a contract to Milton Cat for the replacement of the standby generator radiator at the South Ridge Pumping Station for a total cost of $7,614.
Moved and seconded. Questions on that one? Hearing
What's
none.
the- What's
Go
the
ahead.
difference between those two generators? One for 15, one for size?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. The main pump station generator probably fits in a room about from here to there. It's quite large. Yeah.
A lot of
So
fins.
The difference between a backup generator for the whole system and a backup generator for one pumping station.
Right, that generator powers the whole wastewater plant at once.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Now you got the breakaway flange pump.
Is Bob gonna do that?
Bob's not here.
Bob's not here?
You wanna handle it for him? Actually, we got you as the presenter, so maybe,
Sorry, Dan.
I don't know that much about it, but here we go. Where's the board? Hang on.
so, Bob's requesting the board approval for purchase of a new breakaway flange
There we
pump.
go. Yeah, so what are breakaway flanges? When you drop the pump down the rails that hold the pump and motor together, or they go down as one piece. That flange, it's kind of always on a little bit of tension on those rails, and when you get the pump to start, it'll rock a little bit. And so after a while, it fatigues and breaks. And so that's what he's requesting for you to approve. He got bids from Champlain Construction and then from Belden. Belden is doing the pump station work around town. So it was an easy, phone call to have them come and take another look, give us another proposal on it. Champlain's bid was $4,000 and Belden's was $4,645. And so he's recommending to have Champlain do that work for $4,000.
So I'll make a motion to award a contract to Champlain Construction for the replacement of a breakaway flange pump base for the wastewater treatment facility for a total cost of $4,000.
Did you second?
Yep.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is this something they use on a daily basis?
Yeah, there's a mini continental divide on Exchange Street where some of the businesses on the north end go directly to the plant.
Yeah.
And those are the only ones that go there and go through the small pump station. Everyone else in town, eventually all their wastewater goes through the main pump station by the police department. So this is the station that takes, Agrimark, pretty much everybody north of that goes directly to the wastewater plant. That's the pump station. It's like one of these other pump stations we have around town.
Yeah,
It's like that, except this one is right at the pump station. So
okay.
he has 2 pumps on it, and it's one of those bases, one of those pumps.
Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Dan.
Sig-
And thanks, Dan, for helping out with that last item.
Sure.
That was a nice explanation.
Sure. Signals, briefly. I think it's time that Tom and I were just chatting back there, that we get the signal guy here from the state and talk to him about how that's supposed to work. I believe those are cameras there. Maybe they're gonna consider, maybe with this paving project, they would consider radar units, which are,
Better.
which work better.
Mhm.
I think that's more of the issue than malfunction of the control equipment. I think it's the sensing is the issue. Like why you're not getting out. Those signals are on like 80-second, unless they've changed them, but I'm pretty sure they're 80-second cycles for the through traffic. So if you pull up to a light, and each time there's a light change in either direction, that's a phase. And if you have a pedestrian push, that's a phase. So it cycles through all those phases in order. And depending on when you pull up to that intersection or when the pedestrian pushes the button, that phase gets called and put in the cycle. If you come up to it just past the opportunity for that call to be recognized, you wait a whole nother cycle. And I mean, I've had that. You go northbound, want to turn into the plaza, you just miss it, and you're waiting 2 cycles. There's not much that can be done with that, but we want to make sure that when you do get there that you're sensed properly and you don't wait another cycle, which sounds like what Farhad has experienced.
This is the first time it happened. I always use
Yeah.
that signal, and I never had issues before.
Yeah,
This is the
okay.
first. And I was counting like 2:14 to 2:18, like 4 minutes. And then I reversed my car. Thank God nobody was behind me, so I went back into my lot and came out.
Yeah. So I talked to the gentleman from the state that maintains those probably about a week to 10 days ago. And he was going to make some changes for the through traffic to give it a longer period, and he's going to let it see how it went. Well, of course, school's been out, so the traffic has totally changed.
Yep.
And how are you going to see what you really accomplished? So anyway, that's still out there. It's interesting that, when we drive north into town in the morning, people want the through light. Well, if you accommodate for that, then in the evening, people going home I want the through light. And so it's a balance is what I'm trying to say. But I think it's worth having him chat with Bill and myself and Tom and make sure that we're all on the same page with
I
that.
want the light to work in the direction I'm going when
Sure.
I'm going that way.
Right.
If it knows that Heather is there, it should change.
Yeah.
Needs a picture, no. But in all seriousness, and what I talked to Dan about the other day was, it seemed like there was and maybe this is the way they're set up, that the timing of the 2 lights is off such that what I've experienced is people getting stuck at the middle road trying to travel south, and the light at Hannaford's being green, or vice versa, the middle road light is green, but the Hannaford light is red, and traffic is backed up behind, and people are stuck in the intersection, and so I wonder, in that cycling, are the two lights connected?
Yes.
So, cause it doesn't seem
But
like it.
I don't think it's just the timing, it's also the sensor is the issue, right? If it detects somebody stopping, that's when it prompts it to change, right?
Right, right.
So it's not just the timing also, but also.
But it seems like when people are coming in from the side roads, both lights should be allowing people, like if somebody triggers, you know, to come in from Hannaford's, then Middle Road should also stop so that people aren't backed up in that roadway. It's a timing difference, but anyway.
Yeah, so when you're northbound, you want a green light going north, and then you want it to be synchronized, so when there's heavy traffic in the morning, then Middle Road turns green. But if you're coming southbound, what you're seeing is Middle Road turns green, and by the time maybe you get to the southern light at the sunrise, it's already timed out, because you can't have, the distance between the two
Yeah,
is
it's
an
complicated.
issue with getting the logic to allow both to happen at the same time,
Yeah.
because the travel distances are different. So anyway,
Question on the light at the top of the circle by the Middlebury Inn. Is that now cycling different than it used to? Did we change that at some point? Because I thought it only went red when there was a pedestrian, but it seems like sometimes
they're going on its own.
it's going on its own.
That might be a loop detector. That's,
Because you'll notice now that it turns red and the traffic backs up and there's no pedestrian around there.
I've seen that too, yeah, so there's,
so it might be
And it-
calling it every cycle. If the loop detector's broken, it'll call that phase every,
Then I think you have a broken loop detector there.
It actually does it at 4 in the morning when I'm going to the airport.
It's happened to me at ridiculous times during the middle of the night, and I'm like, there is,
right.
I didn't see a pedestrian. And so,
That's usually the sign of a
Mhm.
loop detector.
okay.
That wasn't one of the ones on our list to replace, was it?
no. And I
Sorry
know
to-
that, while we're talking about timing on Court Street, what about Cross Street, Court Street, those lights? Because I know that we talked about having them all stop so that the pedestrians could cross safely at the same time.
So we've talked about it, but I thought we decided that it would stay the way it is because of the way the phasing of that light is. So you wanted all the lights
Like a
to
box, yes.
Yeah, so people can't turn from Cross Street left when the pedestrian light is going there. I think you've talked about this with us before,
Right.
and there's some reason why,
We can't do that.
yeah, it has to do with the timing of that.
Well, you can do it, but then you really
So much
negative
longer
impact the Court Square. It blocks North
Mhm.
Court Square traffic, completely.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody moves. And when a pedestrian when a pedestrian a phase gets called, it takes that signal out of the cycle, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes several cycles to get it back in sync with all the other ones. So,
That's, yeah.
and so if you're experiencing different green lights and red lights timing, that's what happens when somebody pushes a pedestrian phase at that intersection. It takes a while for it to all sync up. That's how it's supposed to work. Charles Monroe, it's its own animal. It's because of the offset intersection, it's darn near impossible to get that thing to link up with the other ones.
Yeah.
Just- It's tough,
Okay.
so.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on our agenda is the discussion of policy that we had, the appointment of select board committees and procedure for the creation and oversight of select board committees. We have the recommended policies that were in our packet, and a new proposed select board appointment procedure, and then an application form that would support that new process. And this is provided us by the Policy Review Committee. And I think this is our, if I remember right, this is our second time taking this up. We had some recommended changes for them to look at the last time. What do you think, any comments on it at this point with the new?
I like the clarity of the language that's been proposed. I think it strikes the balance that we were looking for, so I support it.
I agree with Laura. I didn't have any additional comments or thoughts. That seems all reasonable to me.
Is everybody good with these now with the second round of the draft? Are you ready to go final on this?
Yeah.
So if you're ready,
I just would say I do like the application, so we get some consistent information. So I think that was a great addition. Thank you.
that's a nice addition.
So in the standing committee itself, is there any subdivisions of different kinds of committees, or is it, they're all the same?
There are different kinds of committees. They're outlined in the document, the policy document. Yes.
Like, for example, MCTV, is that a standing committee, or is that?
Oh, do we
It's not
know
as,
what they are? Oh, okay.
So I think the planning commission and the DRB and the,
Parks and Rec, those are standing committees, yeah.
well,
No, they're a
no,
little different. DIDC would be a different.
DIDC, those are statute
Commissions and
and,
boards are different. They
Yeah.
they have specific guidelines for how they're to operate.
Right.
because those are covered by an ordinance or state
Vermont,
statute,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then there's the ones that the select board just creates,
Like the Energy Committee or Parks and Rec
yes.
or Library, yeah. Mhm.
There's actually on our website, there's a Middlebury Boards, Committees, Commissions, and Task
Yep.
Force. There's that
But it's true, people don't always know what's what, like,
whether it's a committee, a commission, a board.
yes.
Yeah, for example, MCTV,
Sometimes
we
you
don't
can tell by
appoint
the title
anybody
of it.
on that committee.
Mhm.
We
We
used
we just said a select board member, but they pick their own people.
We appoint
On
a rep,
MCTV, we don't appoint all the members on there.
not all the members, we appoint a representative from the
Yeah.
select board, yeah.
Right, and Malta is another example. So we do have, or all the Regional Planning Commission appointments, that's different, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, they're not reporting to the select board.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're ready to go final, then I would entertain a motion to support the adoption of that, the new policy then.
I'll make a motion to support the adoption of the policy regarding the appointment of select board committees, the procedure for the creation and oversight of select board committees and appointments to the committees, boards, and commissions, and the application for appointment to town boards, committees, commissions, task force, and official positions.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Please pass on our thank you to the Policy Committee
Really.
for their continuation of this great work.
We'll do that. And as you know, Beth and Chris are on that, so they'll be watching the tape, as are Donna Donahue and Gary Baker.
Once more, great work.
Okay, Victor, check warrants.
Okay, town expenditures from the 24th of July 2019 through the 13th of August 2019 were total expenditures $748,591.19. That includes accounts payable, $630,401.31, and payroll, $118,189.88.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, town manager's report.
As you may know, lifelong Middlebury resident Walter Calhoun passed away on July 27th at the age of 92. Walter led a life of service to his community as a member of the Addison County Court Diversion Review Board, as town agent since 1991, as an elected official on the Board of Civil Authority, and as a justice of the peace. We offer our sincere condolences to Walter's family, and while we are saddened by his passing, we are ever grateful for his dedication and the many lasting contributions he made to the Middlebury community. And that's all I have.
Okay. Board member concerns. Nick?
It's funny, I was thinking about Walter, you know, when we did the town, dedication of the town report to him, and he came up to me and says, "What are you doing that for?" You know, it's like, so, just a great guy. No, I mean, it's good to have Victor back. Glad to see you running in here. Thanks. Good to see you back. And other than that, no, nothing.
Farhad?
I'm good, thanks.
Lindsay?
I don't know if anyone's been to Harold Curtis, but the basketball court is in, and it looks fantastic. And I saw people using it for a real game where they don't have to chase the ball all the time.
Have you seen the canopy also?
Yeah, and I was gonna say over by the teen center, the Lions Pavilion is up. Last time I saw it, they hadn't poured the concrete yet. But the pavilion was up. It's bigger than I expected. It looks fantastic, and I bet next summer we're gonna see a lot of birthday parties happening there, so it's a
Awesome.
good spot.
Heather?
So I would just remind everyone that the block party is tomorrow night. And I read on social media that our fearless leader, Kathleen Ramsey, is taking a turn in the dunk tank.
Make sure you.
So,
Where do we put the money on that one?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 5:30 to 6. I could have that time wrong.
You're not misleading us, are you?
And I can't remember her name, but our fearless parking officer is also
Jody
taking a turn, and Bill Kernan is taking a turn, so sign me up. So I just wanted to remind everyone to come out and support our downtown and have some fun and have a great time together. So the weather looks fabulous for tomorrow compared to last year, so hope to see you all there.
Is it
So-
4 to 8?
5 to 8.
5 to 8.
Victor?
Nothing?
You didn't store all kinds of words to share with us? What was it like not to be able to get out for a while?
Well, I'm glad to be out.
Doing jumping jacks,
Yeah, well,
a
next
new
week.
knee. Love it.
Well, speaking of getting out, you know, the organization that helps with the block party is Come Alive Outside, you know, which is really the intention of the block party also, just to remind us that we are invited to really enjoy our great outdoors. And to that effect, Addison County Walk Bike Council is working on a triangle bike loop project right now, and there's a public hearing to get informed about that and to provide input into that loop this Thursday, August 15th at 7 o'clock. It's in New Haven at the Town Hall in New Haven. But even if you don't get to that meeting, I recommend checking out the link that describes the project. It's fantastic. Like the work that went into this to diagnose all of our roads in Addison County for bikeability alone is valuable. So what we're aiming to do is connect the three largest hubs of Middlebury, Bristol, and Vergennes, and really designate some of the problem blind spots and see what we could do to prioritize those, because it'll be a real marketing, economic development tool to be able to bike around our hub towns that way, both for recreation purposes and commuting purposes. So I just wanted you to know about that wonderful project. It's really going to be fantastic, to imagine that map in another year or so, and being able to market that. I can also tell you that Actor is seeking feedback from riders in the community on their bus routes, so that's happening next week. And again, you could do that in writing if you have some thoughts about the routes. Don't forget that Actor also provides dial-a-ride services, so they're always looking for feedback on that service as well. In fact, I've become a dial-a-ride volunteer driver. You know that I serve on the board, and it's very valuable to do that. So I'm mentioning this tonight for anybody that's watching too, because there's a real need for those rides. It's like Meals on Wheels. We have many, many community members that really couldn't get to their medical appointments otherwise, so I've gotten to know people I never would have gotten to know otherwise from doing that. So that's another thing. And of course, VTrans is looking for input on the macro view of public transportation, and there's a link for that, which I'll provide Kathleen, so that you can provide that input as well. And I just wanted you to know that your input is really valued and considered, and on all those levels.
Okay. So, what's our next select board meeting?
27th?
27th. We'll be seeing you on the 27th. We have a very light night today. 8:05. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.